Okay, so what if I told you there's an ancient, super simple trick that can make a piece of wood last for 80 years? A technique that basically armors it against rot, bugs, and weather. Well, there is, and by the time we're done here, you'll know exactly how to do it yourself, like this weekend.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's talking about a fence board that's been sitting outside since 2006, taking on almost 2 decades of brutal Canadian weather. No paint, no stain, nothing. Just this deep, black, protected surface that is held up against everything. That's the kind of power we're talking about.
Now let's talk money, because this is where it gets really wild. Architects and designers are obsessed with this look. They call it Yakisugi. And if you have it professionally installed, it can run you as much as 27 bucks a square foot. But to buy the materials and do it yourself, you're looking at maybe 50 cents. Yeah, the difference is just staggering. And here's the big payoff. With just one treatment and a little bit of care down the road, you're looking at a lifespan of 50, maybe even 80 years. In some cases, way longer. Just think about that for a second. One weekend of work for protection that could literally outlast you. So how in the world does setting wood on fire protect it? I know, it sounds completely backwards, but it's not magic. It's all science. We're not just burning wood. We're giving it armor. Let's dig into how this fire armor actually works. The whole idea is based on something called controlled carbonization. What that means is you're using a flame to very carefully char just the outer skin of the wood. This turns that surface into a protective layer of carbon, kind of like a shield, while the wood underneath stays totally strong and untouched. So, what's so great about this carbon layer? Well, think of it as a natural all-in-one protector. Carbon itself is basically inert, so fungus that causes rot, it can't grow on it. Insects, they can't eat it. The sun's UV rays, which destroy normal wood, they just bounce right off. And on top of all that, it makes the wood incredibly water repellent. Okay, now this is super important. You can't just grab any old 2x4 and expect this to work perfectly. The kind of wood you choose makes a huge difference in how durable it is and how good it looks. So let's talk about picking the right lumber for your project. For most of you out there, especially for anything that's going to live outside, like a fence or siding, Western red cedar is your absolute best bet. It just chars beautifully and consistently. Cypress is another fantastic choice, especially if you live somewhere really humid. You can use pine, and it's cheaper, but it's really better for things that are a little more protected from the elements. And please, please burn this into your brain. Some tutorials out there might tell you this is an optional step, but it is not. The oil is what seals that carbon layer, locks it in, and keeps it from flaking away over time. You have to do it, especially with cedar. Remember this, the char is the armor, the oil is what seals the armor. Okay, so you're ready to actually try this, right? Well, one of the best parts about this whole thing is how cheap it is to get started. You do not need some fancy workshop. In fact, your entire toolkit, not including the wood, is probably going to set you back less than 60 bucks. So here's what you need. The big one is a real propane torch wand, the kind roofers use, not one of those little kitchen gadgets. Then you just need a cheap wire brush, some boiled linseed oil, and, most important of all, a bucket of water right by your side. Safety first, always. That's really it. All right, this is the main event. This is what you've been waiting for. We're going to walk through the whole process step by step, taking a plain old piece of wood and turning it into something beautiful and almost indestructible. Here's the game plan. It all breaks down into 5 really simple stages. First, you prep and think about safety. Then you do the torching. Let it cool all the way down, brush off the loose soot, and finally you seal it all up with oil. That's the whole process right there. So what's the real secret to getting that perfect, even char that looks so good? It really just comes down to one thing, how you move the torch. It's the part people get wrong the most, but it's actually really easy once you get the feel for it. Okay, so let's look at what to look for. If you move the torch too fast, you're gonna get this patchy, ugly burn where you can still see the raw wood. Go too slow, and you actually burn too deep, which cracks the wood and makes it weak. What you're looking for, that sweet spot, is this beautiful alligator skin texture. It's this consistent, crackled pattern where the whole surface is black, but you can still kind of see the green underneath. That's perfection. So here are the keys to nail it. Always work outside on something that won't catch fire, like a gravel driveway. Keep your torch about 4 to 6 inches away from the wood, and use these slow, steady, overlapping passes, kind of like you're spray painting. You want each pass to just barely cover the edge of the last one. And seriously, the most important tip I can give you, practice on some scrap pieces first. Just mess around for 20 minutes. It'll make all the difference, I promise.
Once your board is totally cool to the touch, the hard part's over. Now you just take your wire brush and scrub firmly with the grain to get all the loose soot off. Wipe away the dust, then slather on the linseed oil with a rag. Let it soak in for maybe 20 minutes or so, wipe off whatever didn't soak in, and then just let it sit and cure for a day.
So you did it. Your project looks absolutely amazing. But now what? Let's talk about the ridiculously simple maintenance that's going to protect that hard work and save you a ton of money for decades.
The char itself will last forever, but that oil finish needs a little love every few years if it's out in the sun and rain. So after your first coat, you'll probably want to put another coat on around year 3. Then check it again around year 5. After that, just a quick look once a year is all you need. It's an afternoon job that keeps it looking perfect. And this right here brings us right back to the beginning. Getting that pro Yakisugi sighting could cost you over $45,000 for an average house. When you do it yourself, you get the exact same beautiful, timeless protection for just a tiny, tiny fraction of that price. The value is just off the charts.
Hey, if you got something out of this explainer and you're feeling ready to give it a shot, do us a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more projects like this. It really, really helps us out.
You know, it's pretty wild to think that for hundreds of years, this was just a practical building trick that only people in coastal Japan really knew about. Then, sometime in the early 2000s, architects saw it, fell in love with it, and boom, it became this high-end global design trend. And of course, that $45,000 price tag came right along with the trend. But the original method, the simple 1,000-year-old technique that anyone can do with a torch and some oil, that never changed. That knowledge is still out there for anyone to grab. So now you've got it. You have the knowledge of a craft that's been proven for centuries on different continents through the worst weather imaginable. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with it this weekend?